I'm your host, Ken Joslin. I've got a ridiculously amazing guest today, James Altucher from New York. Did I say it fast enough, James?
Yeah.
James Altucher from New York City. Actually lives in Atlanta now.
Yeah.
Author of 25 books, best-selling book, Choose Yourself, investor, entrepreneur, he's run a hedge fund. He's pretty much done it all. He's got a new app, new idea we're going to talk about today called 10 Ideas a Day. James, how you doing, my friend?
Ken, thanks so much for having me on your show. I'm really excited to be here.
Dude, talk to our audience real quick, a little bit about, obviously you sound like you're from New York City, but you actually live in the South now. Talk a
I'm a
little bit
Southerner.
about, yeah, I hear you, my friend. Talk a little bit about what you've got going on right now, dude. What are you passionate about? What's going on right now in your life?
In general, I'm passionate about doing things for people who maybe got themselves into bad situations. Like I was once, I in the 90s, I built a company, sold it. I had never had a single dollar in my bank account before. Suddenly I had millions of dollars and I had no idea what to do. Like there's three skills to money, making it, growing it, keeping it. So I knew how to make it, but I didn't know how to grow it and keep it. And so I went broke. I went within 2 years of having $15 million cash in the bank. I was 100% broke. I couldn't pay my mortgage. I was losing. I lost my house. I lost everything. And I got so depressed. And it really, my battle out of kind of, becoming impoverished again, and the steps I took became the basis for almost everything I did in life afterwards. And I even went broke a second time after selling a company. Like I didn't learn the lesson the first time. And knock on wood, I hope I've learned the lesson because life is always in a state of improvement. But consequently, because of all of this, I've written a lot of books about my stories and steps I took and people I've met and things I've learned from others and so on. I have a podcast, which, I've interviewed everybody from billionaires to sports athletes to people who chase UFOs to political candidates to whatever. And, trying to kind of see what was their methodologies for success. And, and all along the way, I've done other things. I've built more businesses. I've created a website, notepad.com, NOTEPD, no A, PD.com, which helps people do this 10 ideas a day practice that I talk about a lot. And I'm also, I'll tell you, as of last weekend, I won the Georgia State Senior Chess Championship. So the championship for, if you're in Georgia and you're over the age of 50, I'm your champion when it comes to chess.
So if somebody needs a chess coach, you have a landing page set up if somebody wants you to train them in how to play chess?
No, but I do coaching though, but it's usually with, like, I know entrepreneurs who want to get better at chess, and then I like to hear their story and I like to, see the analogies between business and chess and stuff. So I give lessons just for free to people who approach me.
Hey, talk to me real quick, James, because it really sounds, I'm listening to you talk. I had no idea this story. It really sounds like when you're a champion for the underdog. Like you're a champion for guys who have made mistakes because they didn't know any better. And I wrote the three things down. There's three things to finances: making it, growing it, and keeping it.
Yeah.
At what
They're
stage?
Completely different skills.
Exactly right. At what stage? So let's just break that down. Let's just spend some time talking about that. Talk to me about what are some of the top skills you think are involved in making money?
It's such a great question because we're talking not only about being an entrepreneur, but also being an investor, and it's similar skills. And one thing is, the most important thing is to understand what risks you're taking. And to some extent, you need experience to understand what risks you're taking. In other cases, it's common sense. In other cases, you could learn by, reading biographies, listening to podcasts, having peers that you could talk to. I have a concept that I write about in one of my most recent books, Skip the Line, the concept's called plus minus equal. So find your plus, someone who's like a mentor. Now, it could be more than one. It also doesn't have to be in person. It could be a virtual mentor. You could read about John D. Rockefeller he could be your mentor, or read about Richard Branson, that he could be your mentor.
Mm.
So you could have multiple pluses. There's the concept of equals. Find people like in a mastermind group, you find people who are going through similar things you're going through, and you exchange notes, and everybody's got different experiences and different comfort levels with different risks. So you learn from these people, and you've got to trust what you're learning. And then there's a concept of minus, because you don't truly understand something unless you can teach it. So we just talked about chess coaching. I know just as I have a coach, it's valuable for me to coach people, because then I understand, it underlines for me the basics. So I always remind myself of the core knowledge that's needed for mastery in any topic. So, this is why I've often written about, people say, well, why do you write about investing? Why don't you just invest? Well, because A, I love to write, and B, plus minus equal. This is an important part of my personal development, is to teach, not because I want you to get better. I want to get better. I get better when I have a minus. Minus is to teach. Minus is almost a negative word to use, but it's not really.
Yeah.
People know where they are in the spectrum. That's the other thing. Know what your weaknesses are. I didn't know that I didn't really understand risk back in, when I first went broke. And look, maybe 20 years later, I still might not understand it, but maybe I'm a little better. And so to make money, take investing. We all know investing is a pathway to wealth. Like, everybody knows that. But how come there aren't more wealthy investors? It's because people, 1% of investing is come up with an idea to invest in. I'll tell you an idea right now. Look at what Warren Buffett owns. You could just Google, what stocks does Warren Buffett own? Guess what? If you own them, you own the best stocks in the world, many of them at a discount to where Warren Buffett bought it. So it's like he's your intern giving you stock picks. Just do that. So that's the 1%. But then the other 99% of investing is understanding what risks you could take. If you take 3 of Warren Buffett's stocks and mortgage your house to buy them, and then there's a pandemic and they crash 80%, you didn't manage your risk properly. Even though you're investing like Warren Buffett, didn't help you at all. You lost all your money. And so it's very important with every activity. Oh, I'm going to buy a house. Can I afford to pay the mortgage? Oh, I'm going to have tax bill coming up. Make sure you set aside, like, every part of life is even relationships is managing risk. So for instance, when I invest in private companies, one thing I learned over the years is that I'm an idiot. Like, if a company calls me for help after I've invested, then that company is probably going out of business. Like, if I'm the first person they're calling, or even the 10th person they're calling the wrong person. So I de-risk my private investments by making sure I invest alongside someone smarter than me. So,
I love that. Hey, talk to me real quick. I love the plus, minus, and the equal. Talk to me about the skills of making money. When did you realize you had those skills? Like, when did you have that light bulb moment?
Yeah. So which kind of brings me to the second point of making money. Back in the 90s, I was a heavy user of the internet and the web. I've been a heavy user of the internet since 1986, and the web basically within weeks after the first web server was made in 1991. And so I knew a lot about how to make a website. And in New York City at that time, maybe there were 5 people in 1994 who knew how to make a website, and I was one of them. So if American Express needed a website, they called their accounting firm, which was Arthur Anderson at the time. Arthur Anderson didn't know how to do it, so they called a big ad agency. The ad agency didn't know how to do it. They called a consulting company. The consulting company called me, and I was able to. I had no money, and I didn't have a company or anything, but I said, okay, I'll do it, and I charged $250,000 to American Express to do AmericanExpress.com. Did the website. It's the first time I ever made money. I paid people who helped me, but it was like amazing concept to me. Oh my gosh, I can make money. So there was, one aspect of this is I realized I was a good salesperson. I always have this concept with sales. I mean, there's a lot of books about sales and everything. There's one concept I always stick to, which is overpromise and overdeliver. So some people say, oh no, you got to, don't you mean under promise and over deliver? And I'm like, no, set expectations really high, higher than all your competitors, and then
Mm,
simply deliver. None of this stuff's rocket science. You're not saying you're going to get a rocket to Mars. If I said I'm going to get a rocket to Jupiter instead, I can't deliver that. But if
right.
you say, hey, can you make this website in 2 months? And I say, hey, I can make it in a week. I could do that. It's not, almost every business out there is not rocket science. And so, it was important to do that. It's also important to realize when you're selling something, people don't want people don't want vendors. They want friends.
Mm,
And so,
relationships.
yeah, make sure you like the people you're selling to, and that'll come across in your
Mhm.
sales. You know what? Sometimes if I felt I wasn't qualified, I'd even recommend my competitors. Guess what? They never chose the competitors. They would always choose me
Yeah.
because I was willing to recommend the competitors.
Yeah, I love that. So making money and then growing money. Talk to me about some of the skills in growing money.
It's interesting because making money ultimately, except for pricing, doesn't have anything to do with money. It's I'm bringing a set of skills to the table or a
Mm,
product to the table, and I'm convincing you to buy it. That we haven't even talked about price. Okay, price is of course a big part of making money, but first you have to have something to sell, and then you have to be able to sell it or market it. Then we can talk about price, and that's where there's a lot of data. People test different prices. So making money actually has very little to do with dollars,
I
but
love that.
growing money has everything to do with dollars. You have a certain amount of money. Let's say you have $100,000 in the bank, and you have to determine what are I'm going to do my research. What are strategies to grow money, and what am I comfortable with? Do I like stocks? Should I put 100% in stocks? Do I like crypto? Do I like bonds? Do I like real estate? What if the world? I'm a very optimistic person. I've been on CNBC hundreds of times. People made fun of me for my optimism, but I always look at the worst case scenario. What if there's another pandemic and the stock market, and this time there's no bailout, and the stock market goes down 70%? Can I do I have strategies for dealing with that? So what are my risks? And it's really important to understand a full range of strategies for growing your money, not just one, not just, oh, here's a stock tip I read in Barron's or my friend told me or whatever. You have a range of strategies. You can't diversify with stocks. They're all stocks move together. So you got to diversify with uncorrelated strategies. And then
Mm,
worst comes to worst, don't do anything with your money. Like if you're nervous, just keep most of it in cash
mm.
and start another business or find a private business to invest in because there's enormous returns from that. So there's a lot of strategies for growing money, but in each case, what's the worst case scenario? For instance, if I invest in a private company, I might not see that money again for 12 years. If it's a great company, they're going to grow for double every year for the next 12 years before selling. So can I handle that? Okay, make my position size really small. Maybe I'll just invest 1% of my net worth in a private company. And then I'll try to invest in 15 private companies like that. And, I say private companies because that's asymmetric returns. They're either zero or tens of thousands of percent.
Yeah.
So, particularly if you get in early. Uh, and, make sure you're not spending too much time growing your money because there's more to life too. I
Mm.
became obsessed with day trading, and that's a very quick way to lose all of your money. And that's just what I was obsessed with. And I did it all day long and I lost all my money. And then I had to really take a step back and say, what did I do wrong? You have to analyze your failures, which is something I was not willing to do at first.
Mm. Hey,
Very important
talk to
to,
me about that, James. Talk about analyzing your like this. I guess the analyzing your failures came on the second time you went broke. Is that right?
yeah, I mean, I thought I was doing it the first time, but I wasn't really doing it correctly. I think sometimes you can't be so quick with a solution. You have to admit, you have to say to yourself, I don't know why this didn't work out. Or sometimes you might never know why something didn't work out, whether it's a company or an investment or a friendship or whatever. And you have to be okay with that. And you have to understand part of your analysis has to be, what do I really understand about this situation? The other thing is, don't blame anyone else. Like I remember when I first went broke, my wife at that time said, oh, I hear people are suing their brokers. You could sue your stockbroker. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that because I've never been in a courtroom in my entire life, other than the Supreme Court when I interviewed Sonia Sotomayor for my podcast. But it's the only courtroom I've ever been in. Uh, Two, if I even litigiously, if I blame someone else, it's going to come back at me. Like
Mhm.
I have to take ownership of the bad things and the good things that I do. There's nothing wrong with taking ownership of the good things, and you have to take ownership of the bad things. Else, you'll never learn. You'll never get better. Let's say you play tennis, and your one buddy who you play tennis with is just beating you all the time. You want to ask yourself, what am I doing wrong? You'll take a video maybe, or you'll have a coach watch you or whatever, because you don't want to lose to your friend all the time. You want to get better, and it feels good to get better. And same thing with investing is that you really want to say, well, okay, Lehman Brothers was collapsing. This is the second time.
Mhm. Mhm.
What do I understand about this situation? What could happen here? And what's really going on in the economy? I find very few people do that kind of analysis. It's not just about the stock. It's not just about the economy. It's not just about, I'm blaming others, my stockbroker. Maybe it's about how much you're risking. It's about what else is going on in your life that might be affecting your decision making. If you're not sleeping well, you're not going to make good decisions. As cliche as that is, it's true. So you have to really analyze every aspect of a situation.
I love that. So we're moving from making it. I love how you said making it has nothing to do with money. Growing it has everything to do with money.
Yeah.
That's absolutely brilliant. So let's talk about keeping it.
Right.
How long did it take you to figure out? And I know when you said you started assessing it and really looking inward instead of blaming everything else or circumstances or market or whatever. But when was the moment you had that boom? Oh, okay. Now I'm understanding what I need to do to keep what I've earned.
I would say, and by the way, it's not like I've always been successful at keeping it, even since having this realization, but realizing you need to feel actual physical pain when you're taking a risk you shouldn't. And why physical pain? I'm very specific about this. It's because if you know something, that doesn't mean you understand something. Like I know, oh, don't put 50% of my money in one stock. Okay, everybody knows that. But do you really understand why? Oh, I'm just doing it for a day. It's not going to be so bad. You're probably right. But having a deep understanding when you're making, like, for instance, I can invest in the best private company in the world, and I know, let's say I know in advance it's the best private company in the world. I still will not put more than 1% of my net worth in that company. I literally will feel pain if I do that, because what if I don't want to lose 3% or 4% of my net worth. And if the company works, I might double my net worth from this one company just by investing 1%.
Right.
Okay, that's good. I could do that a couple of times and that will make me a lot of money. But if I take too much risk, I can't invest in as many companies and everything ripples down. It could be the case that instead of 15 investments that I'm in where I could afford for some to fail and others to double my net worth, I'm now only in 3 and they all fail. And so really understanding things at a deeper level to the point where you actually feel pain. Like, do you play poker?
I do.
So I'll tell you a story a friend of mine told me is that he was on his way towards being a professional poker player, and he had a coach, and his coach said, why did you play King Jack offsuit in early position in this hand? And my friend said, oh, well, I was having a hard time in my life. Then don't look at that hand. It's not really who I am. And the coach said, no, that really is who you are when your guard is down, when you're not properly decision making. That's, using trained decision-making methods, that's who you are. So you don't deeply understand that King Jack offsuit is a bad hand to open up with from early position. And that's the stuff where you can't blame anything else. It's like, oh, I didn't know the whole market was about to collapse, so that's why I invested in this stock. Or I didn't know that there was 50,000 other competitors to this. Right. So, they didn't tell me something. I didn't know that they only had 6 months of cash left. They didn't tell me. So you have to have a you have to feel physical pain about the things you don't know.
I love
Like,
that. I absolutely love that. Talk to me, James. I love that. Making it, growing it, keeping it, the physical pain. Talk to me. I'll transition a little bit. Talk to me about your 10 ideas a day. We
yeah,
talked about that off air, kind of almost an incubator. Tell me where that idea came. Obviously, vision. You're not short on vision or ideas. I mean, I can tell that's really your sweet spot. But talk to me about this 10 ideas a day.
maybe it's my sweet spot, maybe it isn't. Like when you're depressed and you just went broke, or you're broke from the start. I've been both. You're not always thinking of ideas and how you're going to get out of this. Sometimes when you're in a bad state of mind, things do get worse.
Mhm.
There's a famous book from the 1960s called "Been Down So Long It Looks Like Up to Me." It's a novel, and you could actually still go down when you've been down so long. A lot of it depends really on mood and optimism, not blind optimism, but rational optimism. But
Mm.
okay, so I was very depressed. I was losing my house, losing my family. This was 2002, and I didn't have anything to do. I was an internet guy, and everybody at that point thought the internet was a scam, and oh, that internet thing's never coming back. And so, and I was going, and I'd gone broke already. So I was walking around, and I passed this restaurant supply store in New York City, and I went in there for some reason, and I saw a box of waiters pads, and I thought, oh, these pads are really nice. I like them. So I bought. Everyone's got their fancy notebooks and meetings that
Mhm.
they spent $300 on with their Mont Blanc pens and whatever. But I bought 100 waiters pads for $10, so 10 cents a waiters pad. And every day I would go out for breakfast in the morning and I'd read a little, and then I'd write down 10 ideas. And the waiter's pad was great because it's just short bullets each thing, and boom. And I realized after, like, I was just writing random ideas for books, ideas for chapters for books, ideas for businesses, ideas for investment strategies, ideas for my other friends could use, and so on. But after about 3 or 4 weeks, I felt myself for the first time in 2 years getting excited about things. Like, oh, I'm excited to write this book, maybe that I wrote these ideas for. I would send out emails. Hey, famous writer, here's 10 ideas you could write about for the Wall Street Journal or whatever. And and I would say, no need to respond to me. Like, I don't want to bother anybody. But more and more people started responding to me and saying, hey, maybe you should write these articles, or maybe you should
Mhm.
um, do these hedge fund strategies for us, or maybe you should speak at, come to Amazon, and we'll give you a tour of our facility, and you could share your ideas with all the people, and we'll pay for it and whatever. And so I very quickly I started sending some of the, not all of them, because the point was really just to exercise the idea muscle before it atrophies, because most
Mhm.
people let their idea muscle atrophies. But so really the point was to create a strong creativity muscle, a strong idea muscle. But then I started sending some of these ideas to people, and I got every opportunity I've had since then is because of that, simply because of writing 10 ideas a day, sometimes executing on them, sometimes sending them to other people. If I'm meeting,
So,
if I'm
so
meeting
let
you for
me
lunch, I'll write 10 ideas a day about what, Ken should do for his business, and on and on.
so let me ask you this question. Do those ideas come easy to you every morning? Is there some mornings you have to kind of process more, or does it just flow out of you when you grab your pad?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because if I just said, "Oh, what are 10 things I'm grateful for," which is another type of list which people obviously should do, it's very easy for me to say, "Oh, my kids, I'm grateful I'm on Ken's show. I'm grateful I have a nice house and a wife who loves me," and blah blah blah. It's very easy to do that. So the real challenge is to make it difficult for yourself. So, what are 10 ideas I haven't thought of before in crypto, for instance? Well, there's a million businesses already out there, and I've already thought about this before. So now it's difficult for me. And maybe ideas 1 through 5, 1 through 6 come easy. But then 7,
Mhm.
8, 9, 10, I swear to God, I'll hit idea 7, And I'll say every single time, it's like clockwork. I'll say to myself, ah, am I done yet? And I'll literally count. Oh no, only 6, only 7. Idea number 8. Am I done yet? Oh no, I just asked myself that as I only did one idea since then. So it should be the right balance where the final 3 or 4 should be difficult. And it would take me about 20 minutes usually.
What's the best idea you've ever written down in that exercise?
Oh, I don't know, because when you write, here's an important thing to realize. When you write down 3,650 ideas a year, 99% of them are bad. So you also have to be really comfortable with really bad ideas. So it could be the case that, I wrote down a really good idea, but I thought it was bad. And I don't until I made this website to keep track of your idea list, I don't keep track. I never kept track of them for 20 years. But I built this one company in 2006, 2007 called Stock Picker, which was kind of like a social network for investors. And I sold it 4 months after I launched it for $10 million to thestreet.com. I did go broke 2 years after that, but that's another story. And but that was an idea that came from, first I wrote down 10 ideas for social networks. 1 through 9, I tried to implement. They all failed. Number 10 was Stock Picker. It worked. So that probably was the most monetized idea I've done. But I'm all the time coming up with different ideas for books. I write down ideas for book ideas. The very first idea list I wrote was how to beat all your friends and family at every game in the universe. So I found shortcuts, like Thanksgiving was coming up. So you meet your family for Thanksgiving. Everybody sits around and plays Scrabble. If you know the 2-letter words, there's like 103 of them. If you know all the 2-letter words, you'll beat all your friends in Scrabble, unless they're like professionals. So just know that QI and XU are words, and you're golden.
That is absolutely. I love that. That's my sister. She's a big Scrabble player at all.
Yeah, James, QOPF.
Yes, that's exactly right. So tell me what you've got working. What are you working on right now? Like where's the majority of your passion and attention going right now, James?
Yeah, I mean, I always want to make sure that it's important to think about money, and money is how we kind of, deliver value to the world and help others and so on when we create value. So I always try to make sure I'm balanced. Like, okay, I'm pursuing passions, and I'm also pursuing passions related to making money. But I guess I'm really passionate about something that I'm not totally sure as a business. It's a website I made, notepad.com. I mentioned it earlier, notepad without the A, where, people could sign up, and then you could start writing your 10 ideas a day. If you choose to list your ideas as public versus private, and you have that choice, then other people could see your ideas and comment on them. And a nice community has developed. We basically just started. We haven't officially launched. Something like 15,000 idea lists have been made. We get about 50,000 visitors a month. And I've also made it optional. You could make a list, not only public or private, but premium. So I can make a list, 10 stocks you should buy in a recession, and I could charge $10 for it or $50 for it. So I may put that functionality in the site too, because I know people were interested in sites, a social network that could help them make money instead of just selling their data or whatever. And I don't know if it's a business, or maybe it's a component of a business. I don't know. I really just did it because so many people over the past 20 years have asked me to make that website. So I made it. But that I'm passionate about. I'm also passionate about, I'm over 50 years old, and the brain changes over the age of 50. And so I mentioned earlier, 25 years ago, I was a young, aspiring chess master. Now everybody tells me you can't get back to the level you were. You're too old. So I'm learning so much about neuroscience and the brain and how to really master something at a deep level. I'm really trying to make this comeback. And then in the middle of all of that, I have an investing research service. You can find it like jamesaltucher.com, where I do have various products that recommend different investing strategies. And, I want to help people not make the same mistakes I made. And that also started not as a business, but as it grew, I needed more help and needed to, turn it into a business.
There's one thing I talk about a lot that it's my goal every single day, and you can't put a price tag on it. I don't care how many zeros you have in your bank account, you can't purchase it. And that's fulfillment. Talk to me about the level of fulfillment, James, you get by helping other people not make the same mistakes you did.
Yeah. I think about this a lot, which is what is fulfillment. And, I picture how the opposite of fulfilled I was when, like you said, it doesn't matter how many zeros you had. I had all these zeros. I had literally 15 million cash. And within a short amount of time, I went dead broke. And it felt it was the opposite of fulfillment. And I had no friends. They're all your friends on the way up. They're not your friends on the way down. And, my family life was in shatters. Was losing my home, everything. And I think about, so these are the components of what I think fulfillment is a feeling of freedom. Like, I certainly didn't feel free. I felt more free when I never had money than when I made money and went broke. Because when I never had money, there was kind of opportunity in front of me, and I was excited, and I had visions of how I could make money, and some were right and some were wrong. But when you lose it, you think, oh, I had just won the lottery and now I blew it, and I'm no longer free from the daily shackles of, a regular job. Nothing wrong with a regular job, but a lot of people don't like that, or they want to at least have a choice. Community is really important. So there's a lot of evidence, a lot of research that shows you could put off dementia. Even if you have Alzheimer's, you could put off the effect of Alzheimer's if by having social connections with people you love every single day. And sometimes if I forget to call my kids, for instance, they're adults, they're living in the city, I'll call them and or I'll call a friend. I just make sure every day I'm having a community. And that's what I loved about making Notepad, is it also created kind of a community around some of my ideas. And then the third component is mastery. Like, no matter whether you're 3 years old or 90 years old, you should always have like the mind of a student. You should always want to learn new things. You don't have to be a chess master or a professional tennis player, but maybe, learn something new every single day. That's why I like to write these 10 ideas a day down. Sometimes I have to research things, and I learn something new every day. Now, if you can be competitive, master of something, that's great. That might make you miserable too, because then being competitive, you could lose, and that feels horrible. But a sense of getting better at something is really important. So mastery, community, freedom.
I love that, man. James, what's the best way for our audience to get in contact with you?
They could email me, altucher@gmail.com. I don't always I'm not very good at responding to emails, but what
about your IG account? Good. You're on that a lot, posting a pretty good bit.
Oh, you know where you can find me? Notepad.com. I post 10 ideas a day there every single day. And you could, I'm doing an Ask Me Anything there right now, even. So feel free to always contact me there.
Notepad, that's NOTEPD, noa.com. Check out my guy, James Altucher. James, thank you for joining us today on our podcast.
Ken, thank you so much for having me. This is really great. Yes, really great questions.
It's been a blast. Guys, thanks for joining us on the As a Leader podcast. As always, if this has added value, I'm going to ask if you would, man, hit that subscribe button. While you're listening, shoot a screenshot, share it on IG. I'll reshare and give you some love as well. Again, thanks so much for joining us. See you next episode.